Hey, what's up, guys? Now, did you guys know that King David's son, right, his firstborn heir, apparent heir to the throne, uh, Amnon, right? His name was Amnon. He actually raped his own sister. Now, yes, this is indeed a true story, right? And it just goes to show how lust could pretty much ultimately lead to one's own demise, right? I had just seen something on the news the other day where it was some girl was cheating on her husband, right? She was in her 30s, and he caught her cheating with a fool that was 18, and the husband ended up taking the young teen's life, right? Now, this goes to show how lust, right, could lead to your own detriment, right? It could cause you harm, right? Literal physical harm, not just to you, but to others as well, right? So the story goes like this. King David's firstborn, his name was Amnon. He was obsessed, right? He was obsessed. Supposedly he loved his sister. Now his sister's name was Tamar. It was his stepsister, right? But nonetheless, his sister. They both had the same dad, different mothers, but the same dad. And it says that he loved her so much that he made himself ill. Like he literally couldn't stand the fact that she was so beautiful, that she was a virgin. Like I guess he couldn't stand the fact that he couldn't be with her, right? Like that's what it says, that like he just couldn't see himself to do anything to her, right? And it comes to pass that his cousin, right, Amnon's cousin, tells him, oh, like why is the king's son always sad, stuff like that, because he was his advisor as well, right? Not only his friend, his cousin, but also his advisor. So he tells him like, oh, I'm in love with Tamar, right? My brother Absalom's sister, right? Now, right here, one thing that's important to note is that he's disassociating himself, right? Like he's like, oh, my brother Absalom's sister, right? Like if it's not his sister as well, right? It is his sister, just not his full-blooded sister, right? Absalom, that was her brother from like actual mom and dad, right? But nonetheless, his cousin, his advisor, advises him like, oh, why don't you lay in bed and pretend to be sick, right? And then when your father comes to see you, he's like, just tell him like, oh, if you could send my sister, right, Tamar, so that she may cook a meal in my side, right, and then feed it to me with her hand. So then the king does it, he says, right, that okay, she sends her to his house, right? She's cooking, she's doing all this stuff, right? And she offers him, I think, some bread that she made or something like that. But he refuses to eat it. Then he tells everybody in his home, right? I'm guessing his servants, whoever was there, like, leave. And then he tells her, like, oh, come and feed me, like, by your hand in my bed, right? So she goes in. It says that he seizes her and that he tells her, like, oh, my sister, come lay down with me, right? And that she tells him, like, oh, like, no, like, such a thing must not be done in Israel, right? And he's still is insisting, right? Like he's like pretty much telling her, come on. And she's like, no, because she's like, what would happen with my disgrace? And then like you would be like one of the fools in Israel, right? She's pretty much saying this because in those times, like being a virgin, doing these types of things, not married, right, was like very frowned upon, right? She even tells him like, look, like just tell our dad to give me to you in marriage, like he won't deny you, right? But he didn't listen to her, and he grapes her, right? It says that after he finished, right, that he hated her with such contempt, right, that he hated her just as passionately as he loved her, supposedly, right? Which I doubt he ever loved her to do something like that, right? And then he tells her like, oh, go away, like he's pretty much dismissing her, like, oh, okay, like, peace, right? And she says like, no, like sending me away now will be even worse than what you just did to me. But he gets annoyed by her. He gets like his servants or whatever to kick her out of his house, right? And then he says, bolt the door shut when you leave, take her, right? So that's what they do. They take her out and they bolt the door behind them so that she can't come in anymore, right? It says that David's daughters, right, the virgin ones, they would wear like a certain robe, like a certain colors. And it says that because that was symbolizing that they were virgins, right? It says that she tore her clothes and that she put ashes on her head, right? And that she went weeping. Now she goes, and her brother Absalom, right? Now this is her brother, like from the same mom and from the same dad, right? And that when he sees her weeping, that he tells her like, oh, what happened, my sister? Like, did thy brother Amnon, forced you or stuff like that, right? So one thing that I found out was that he already knew, like, instantly, like, oh, like, that guy, right? Like this, like, so that leads me to believe that there must have been some stuff that people were already privy to, right? Not that Absalom, because Absalom was not playing with that, but that they must have known, like, yo, this guy's kind of weird, like, he's too much with our sister, right, or something. And that he comforts her, right, and that he tells her, like, oh, take it not too hard, right, for he's your brother, right, and just pretty much don't mention it, right. And it says that Absalom, he didn't say neither good stuff to his brother Amnon, and he never said nothing bad to him, right. But it says that he hated him, right. So 2 years passed, and mind you, in those 2 years, you could rest assured that Absalom never forgot, right? He never forgot what that guy, his stepbrother, did to his sister, right? He never forgot it. It says that Tamar went and lived with Absalom in her house, right? A desolate woman, that she just stayed living under his care, right? And her brother's care, right? So mind you, this guy never forgot, right? 2 years later, he decides, you know what, I'm gonna throw a party, I'm gonna do all this stuff, right? He invites his dad, right? Mind you, I think this was all like a plot at this point, right? He's telling his dad, like, yo, come through, we're gonna have a party, this and that, bring your people. His dad's like, nah, like that's, because you gotta remember, the king went, then, hundreds of people probably were gonna attend too, right? Because he has an entourage, So he told him, nah, my son, like, like, I don't wanna burden you guys with this, right? So Absalom plays along, like, no, come on, cause he's like, nah, but he gave him his blessing. So then once he's like, no, I don't want to go over there. Then he tells him, oh, then at least let my brother Amnon attend, right? Mind you, Amnon is the person that raped his sister. Amnon is the heir to the throne, or so it would seem, right? Because he's the firstborn to David. David kind of was like, what? Like, why would you want Amnon to go, right? But, persistent or whatever. He probably fooled him, right? Because he's like, oh, he invited all his brothers, right? But he's probably like, come on, I want all my brothers to hang out. We'll all be together, right? Like, it's not just him. Like, I want all of us to hang out together as brothers, right? So David's all right. So he sends them, right? So once they're partying, whatever, Absalom tells his servants, he tells them, look, when the prince, Amnon, is, hardy, he's already drunk, he's having a good time. He's like, when I give the signal, he's like, whack him. You know what I mean? And that they were like, no, like, what? Like, he's like, oh, did I not command you this? He's like, don't worry about it. Like, just be brave and carry out what I'm telling you to do. So once he gives them the signal, they whack him. They whack his brother, right? The one that had raped Tamar. So the other princes, they see this and they all scatter, right? They all start running different directions, right? They get on their mules, they all start dipping, right? Now, one of the people there must have gotten back to David first, right? Because apparently when word gets back to David, somebody tells him like, oh, your son Absalom, like he went crazy. He just killed all the king's sons, right? Like there's no one left. It says that when King David heard this story, that he rent his clothes, right? And he laid on the floor. All his attendants, all his people that were there, right? They rent their clothes as well, right? So, the advisor that had advised this hypocrite, this advisor that had advised Amnon to do this thing since the beginning, right? His cousin, he tells him, oh no, my lord, right? Like surely, like only the one that is Absalom killed is just Amnon, right? He's wanting to do that since when he did that to his sister, right? Mind you, he's the one that gave him that plan pretty much of how to do it, right? So later on, they see people coming, right, running from the distance, and then somebody says, oh, there's people coming, and he's like, oh, see, my lord, like what your servant said is true, like here your son's coming, right? Once he's finished talking, the sons walk in, right, and they told David everything that happened. They all start embracing each other, they all start crying amongst each other, David, his sons, all the attendants, right? And it says that Absalom fled, right? He fled for a while, and it says after the time of mourning that David did for his son Amnon, that it says that after he had grieved and he had, like, it says that he missed his son, right? Because mind you, that was still his son. That was still his son Absalom, right? And he probably felt like, man, like, because this is one thing that I always wonder, like, did King David like do anything about when his eldest did that to his daughter, right? Or did he kind of just brush it under the rug because that was his heir, right? That was his firstborn, and he probably didn't want to make a scene or whatever. And is that why later on, because Absalom comes back later, right? I'm gonna leave it here, but Absalom comes back later, and he comes back for the throne, right? So he had a serious hatred, not only for his brother that he took out, obviously, but he also had a serious contempt, anger, and hatred for his father. Now, could that have played a part into it because of, probably what happened? He probably felt like David didn't do anything about it, and he just let it slide, right? Is that why later on he comes back with a vengeance, looking for blood, right? To overthrow his father and take over his kingdom, right? But, and another thing, right? Absalom was the third eldest, right? So it was Amnon the first eldest. You know how it goes, like, by lineage, like the oldest is always, well, Amnon was the oldest, then there was a second brother, but no much mention is his. Then after it was Absalom, right? So keep in mind that later on this would all come into play, because in his mind he's probably like, I'm the next rightful heir to the throne, right? And like I said, but I'll leave it here, guys. But this is a clear demonstration of what could happen, right, when following your lustful desires, right? He didn't love his own sister. Of course he didn't. Like, this was just all a messed up thing that he was messed up in the head. And ultimately, not only did it hurt his own sister, it hurt his other brother, right, Absalom, because it put hatred in his heart. And then ultimately it led to his own demise. Let that be a fair warning to all of us, right, that lust could lead to death. Peace.